only show for independents all around, giving you a platform to spread your word all over town. Catch the Craze is the place to promote to your fans with the Dreamer, Medina, and Sam the Crazy Man. Subscribe to our show and never miss an episode. It's time to get your meds, listen to us on the go. Updated every week, we've never missed a day. Join the squad, come on in. It's time to catch the Craze. If you are an independent, catch the Craze. Making moves on your own, catch the Craze. On your grind in the streets, catch the Craze. Join the movement, catch the Craze.
Yeah, George, we did it again. Come on now. You know you want to do it. Catch the Craze. Welcome to Catch the Craze podcast. I am your host with the most and the crazy man, and I am with
George, the Dreamer, Medina.
Said a hip, hop, hip, the hip, the hop. You don't stop or rock it to the bang, bang, boogie. Say up, jump the boogie to the rhythm of the boogie, the beat.
So,
everything.
That beat is universal, dude. Anything. You're like any, mighty. Like, you can do anything to that beat, bro. Anything.
What's up?
Man. What's going on, Sammy?
It's crazy. It's crazy. This is a new show. This is what episode is this? I don't know.
We're in the
We're in the two-somethings.
200th episode was a couple of weeks ago, and it was a rising success.
Yes.
It was amazing.
Yes, we're going to have a special guest on. His name is Jamie Medlin, and he is the writer and author of How I Made Profit, selling comic books from home. So he's a collector turned author and a seller. So that's going to be a really good. I have tons of questions for this guy. We met on Instagram. Yeah, we met on the gram, and I read the book, and I couldn't put it down. There's a lot of good information on there, and go check out the book. It's available for sale. It's really good stuff.
Yeah, no, I read it myself, dude. I read it like a half hour. Like, it's like a quick read, just like that. And there's so much information in the book. Like you said, I have tons of questions for the guy. I'm like, holy cow. And he's doing, that's what he does. And correct me if I'm wrong. Did he say he sold the book for $20,000 in one of the pages of the book?
He's making cheddar.
Woo! So yeah, check it out. If you're a collector, and that was one of my questions. Is there a difference between being a collector and being a buyer of comics? You know what I mean? Like, because I collect, but I don't buy and sell comics the way he does. Like he's out there looking for like specific things about the comics. Like we were talking about it, the slab and clean and press. There's terms that he's using in the book that if you're a buyer of comics, not just a collector, but like a person who buys comics for profit, then you know those terms, or you should know those terms.
Yeah, and he definitely piqued my curiosity because one of the biggest trending things that's happening right now on YouTube are the buyers and sellers on YouTube and these auctions of graded comic books on YouTube, and there's like tons and dozens and dozens and dozens of individuals that are doing this on YouTube, and that's a big trend. And he mentioned he mentions having a presence, social media, how to use social media, why is it important, branding yourself. There's a lot of great things that he brings in there, which is things that we discuss from not a collector standpoint, but from a publisher standpoint. He addresses a lot of those things, and some great things. All those things you can apply to different businesses.
Right. It's so true, dude. That's very true. Because as I was reading the book towards the end, I felt the same way. I was like,
yeah, I
can totally apply this to whatever I'm doing, any business that I'm doing.
Yeah, so
it's very informative.
Yes, I'm glad that he did a timeline. He gave an overview, prior to some brief history. But again, so there's no one right or wrong way, because he does say that although these are the things he looks for, some people might look at something else. But this is his preference because it's based on his experience and his taste and what's made him successful. and why he was able to make a profit. So I think understanding that you'll definitely walk away with a lot of good information.
Yep. And like we said, it's a quick read. It's
Yes.
not a long book. It's not a book that you're like, oh my God, you won't be able to put it down like Sam said, and you'll get through it like this. So yeah, glad to have Jamie Medlin on the show. Today is 9/18, which means that next week, Sam, it's a 1 year anniversary, bro.
It's our anniversary.
That's right.
Wow.
That's right. Okay.
I meant to.
Okay.
Oh.
I think you have something crazy.
That's what I'm looking for. So it's not, wow. 1 year.
Yeah.
Wow.
1 year, man. Back in September of 2019, we got the band back together. You know, I remember I did this post on Instagram of like just teases of like, oh man, what happened with this guy? Something big's coming. You know, Catch the Craze is coming back. And then we had J.M. DeSantis on the show as our first guest. And we were on and rolling.
1 year ago, George and I uploaded a show right online so you can watch us here every day. You know that the show was Catch the Craze. Anyway, so wow, freestyle.
Yeah.
In the meanwhile,
So, yeah, dude.
what's your rap name? El Pollo Loco.
Pollo Loco.
Because the girl said, "Oh, he's a pollo," and then the guy's like, "Oh, he's loco."
Why a girl would call you a pollo? I don't know. But that's hysterical.
Huh?
That is
Something about the chicken. I don't know.
Wow. Yeah, dude. So it's been a year since we started the show, and here we are every Friday.
Bringing it. Yes.
Bringing it. Today is 9/18, and we got another show, another guest,
Yeah.
and another Get Your Meds segment.
Get your meds. So what's on this Get Your Meds?
So we have part 4 of my interview with JD about crowdfunding. So part 4 is today. We will be talking and discussing, and I gotta stop saying we will be talking and discussing the crowdfunding and what happens after the campaign is over.
Yes.
So that's what we're going to be talking about today on the show, or on that part of the
Get Your Meds
interview. And yeah, so that's Get Your Meds today. And we have our guests, so it'll be good.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
It'll be a fun time.
Yes, and as you know, we have our Patreon going on, and what you see on the screen are our crazies. So what level of crazy are you? You know, become a crazy today, and your level is dependent on your donation. And you can either just buy an icon and become a crazy, or you can become a member of the Craze, either a basic member, a VIP member, or iconic member. And each level of membership comes with a lot of different great, amazing things. Some exclusives, some free stuff. A lot of it, if you go to our Patreon page, it'll have all the details. Or you could just hit our tip jar and say, you know what, I don't want an icon, I don't want to be a member, I just enjoy the show, but I'll drop you $1 here. So you have all those options, and we appreciate the love. We do this because of you. In order for us to keep it going and keep growing, we need your support, and we appreciate your support. So thank you so much. And you know, we currently have our Kickstarter going on, and we're hoping that to hit our benchmark, so that way we can start production on our comic book. So it'll be a web comic and eventually become a hard copy. So that's what we need you for. So support the Craze, become a crazy. What level of crazy are you? Are you a crazy, a super crazy, a hyper crazy, an ultra crazy, extreme crazy, or you are psycho crazy? So
yeah. And if you have no idea what the heck we're talking about, that's because you missed a 200 show.
Yes.
And you need to go back and check it out. Subscribe, check out our 200th episode, where we will be talking about in depth about what Sam is talking about, the crazies.
Yes.
And our Patreon and how we got that going. Which, dude, tip my hat to you. Very good idea. Thank you and Jack for coming up with it.
Jack the Ripper.
Here we are.
Remember that one?
I do.
Jack the Ripper.
I do remember that one.
That was LL, right?
Oh yeah, that was LL.
Yes.
Jack the Ripper. Wasn't that like a diss song he did for somebody he was trying?
Was it Kumo D? Was he?
It might have been.
It was Kumo D. Yes. Yes.
He's had some rap battles, bro.
Yes.
LL used to go to war with people,
he ended
bro.
that battle with "Mama Said Knock You Out."
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's what he did.
Yes.
Okay.
Don't call this a comeback. I've been here for years.
Remember the one he had with Cannabis?
Yes. Yes.
He had one with Cannabis. He had one with Kumo.
You know, when people talk about greatest of all time, I mean, this guy, LL, was the man.
Who's your greatest of all time?
See,
And this is totally off topic because that's what we do. But
Yeah,
who's your rapper greatest of all time rapper?
see, I have like a group of rappers, a group. So like Rakim, Rakim, as I check out my melody, Juice. So it's Rakim, Nas, LL, Eminem, and Jay-Z are, for me, lyrically, are just like my favorites.
See, for me, it's Tupac, it's Biggie, it's Rakim, Eminem, Nas, like top 5.
See, for me, I love
And then
Tupac.
Jay-Z, I think, comes in.
Tupac
Jay-Z.
will be in my top 10, but not my top 5.
Yeah.
See, Tupac and Biggie, they had a lot of anthem songs.
Mhm.
They had a lot of songs that you can bop to and all that stuff, whatever. Tupac was a great storyteller.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
A great storyteller. You know, I loved when he did that. I wasn't so much big on when doing that whole death row stuff, but you know, because I think he had so much to tell and so much passion, and he could have done so much in the industry. He had such an influence.
Oh, yeah. He was huge.
You know,
You know, there's criteria for like greatest of all time, and I know we're running against the clock, but there's criteria when it comes to rappers for me, right? You have to have the voice, right? You have to have the voice to be able to deliver. The delivery's got to be, you know, different. The content of your music, the lyrics. That to me, that's important. You know what I mean? And then like your mass appeal. Like for me, all those things have to line up in order for you to be on my list of greatest of all times. Now, don't get me wrong, Jay-Z's up there too, but I just think that there are guys ahead of him. Like, I can't put Jay-Z in front of Eminem. And that may be sacrilegious to some people. Like, what, Eminem in front of Jay-Z? Yes. Eminem in front of Jay-Z?
no,
Eminem
lyricist. As far as a wordsmith,
yeah.
lyrically, there's nobody better than Eminem.
Oh, you put him ahead of everybody else.
When it comes to just
wordplay,
just
the way
wordplay,
he
there's
puts words
nobody,
together and
in my opinion, when you sit down and just listen to how. What I like about YouTube is that you get to see the lyrics as it's playing, and then because sometimes you miss it when you're listening to the music, but when you see it in context, I'm like, what the hell? How did he make that word? Oh, look at how he spun that. Look how he did that. You know, it's like fascinating. You're always like, whoa.
You know who was good at that too, though, was Rakim.
Yeah, Rakim. I love Rakim. I mean, Rakim
was a wordsmith.
Rakim was always my favorite. Would always be one of my favorites. Nas, I just felt Nas spoke to the guys in the streets.
I liked Nas until he became Nostradamus. Like,
yeah.
I liked Illmatic. I liked his second album, The Message. Those two albums to me were like it. Like Illmatic I was like, what? Who is this guy?
Yeah.
Like, and then even The Message, that album was good. The albums after that, then we talked about it became more commercial, and it was less about what he wanted to talk about. And it was, to me, that's just how I felt about it, and that's why I kind of like I love Nas. I think he's great, but I think that that was the thing with me. And but Eminem, you're right. I mean, he is a wordsmith, like the guy.
He's the man.
I don't know that I would put him in front of Rob. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, it's tough to say. But
no, I mean,
we should have a whole show on this. We should have a whole show on this.
Yeah, we should. Yes, I think again, wordsmith wise, no one could touch him. When you listen to all of Jay-Z's music from beginning to end, he also the wordplay was amazing. Rakim, LL.
LL's nice too.
And all of his appearances when he was on other songs like Who Shot Ya and all these other songs, and
You know who's underrated? I think is my man Method Man.
Oh, Method's crazy. Method Man.
He's underrated.
Yes.
Dude.
Redman and Method Man.
Redman too.
Yes.
Redman too.
And when you think about in top 10, you got to think about what's his name? Yeah. Busta Rhymes. Oh my gosh! I mean, when you think
I got Jada Smith in my. I mean, Jada Smith. We're talking about Jada Pinkett Smith over here. Jada Kiss. I got Jada Kiss in my mind too. That kid is good.
Yeah. So we have our guest in the waiting room.
Oh, we didn't even get to our Get Your Meds.
Yes, I know. We'll go.
Let's go to that real quick.
Get your meds.
We'll get him back on the show.
Yes. So get your meds.
It's time for your medicine.
Now, assuming we reach our goal, okay, what happens next? You've reached your goal. You made your $3,000. You've promised these people all of these things. What do you do now? Like, how do you what happens?
Okay. Now, here's one thing a lot of people don't realize about Kickstarter. It takes 2 weeks for you to get your funds. 2 weeks. You don't get it automatically. They don't like Indiegogo. Like once it's over, pretty much within 24 hours you'll have your money.
Wow.
Okay. Kickstarter, 2 weeks. All right. So now, again, it depends where you're at. For me, the second I have my numbers, like I know exactly how many orders I have to fulfill, I get in touch with my printer, say, here are my files. Okay, I send it out so that hopefully, by the time I get my money, I'll have those books and I'll be ready to ship.
Right.
And here's the thing. Don't ship until you have the money. Okay, so if you get the books in 1 week, you can start packaging, but don't ship them out. Because what happens is, here's the difference. Like in Indiegogo, there's a difference between the two platforms. There's some differences. There are a lot of similarities, but there's some differences. Indiegogo, they collect the money on the spot. Yeah. Okay, so if you pledge, boom, they're charging your credit card. That's it. Right, and the only way to get that money back is to get a refund. Okay? In Kickstarter, you're making a pledge. And then when the campaign is over, they take 2 weeks and they gather all those funds. Okay, they're like, okay, we got to hit up your credit card or whatever. Sometimes you'll have people who drop out. Okay, you like their credit card will go dead. I mean, all sorts of stuff happens. Somebody loses their job, whatever. Could be anything. I mean, things happen in life. So that's one of the things. So what you're gonna want to do is like wait, collect your money, and see who's paid, and then you just fulfill the orders. So that's why I always suggest.
So there's a way to check to see who's actually paid, and then that's who you're sending, whatever it is you're sending to.
Exactly.
Now, how do you get their address?
When you send out because you have to send out a survey. Okay. So you send out a survey, and then I do digital, so you don't ask for anything. You already have their emails. You just send them out. But you ask everybody who you're shipping to. You just say you send them a survey, and they'll send you all their information as to where to ship it to.
Is there like a specific format that? I mean, other than it's going to sound so stupid, but other than PDF, right? It's a PDF you're sending out. So it's a digital. It's a PDF you're sending out.
Right.
Does Kickstarter have to make sure that there's no virus attached to the PDF when you send it out, or is it something that you just kind of put it on the site and it goes up? Is there any kind of security?
No.
Because
you got to remember you're doing it on your own. You're not going through their website at that point.
Gotcha. So you're just emailing them their PDF essentially.
Exactly.
It just goes to their email.
Usually, what you're sending them is a link for them to download it.
Gotcha.
Because you can use Dropbox. Use any of these other services. Sometimes
Google Drive, right? Google Drive, you can use
Google Drive. If you have your own FTP site, you can use that.
Gotcha. So you get that 2 weeks. You wait. You get your orders in. You see who's paid, and you start sending these things out. That's if you've reached your goal. What happens if you don't reach your goal? Do they? Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. Now with Kickstarter, if you don't reach your goal, you get nothing. Gotcha. You're done. You're finished. Repackage and start over. Okay,
Really,
so
yeah.
yeah,
So they send you like an email. Sorry, I mean you see it, but they basically say, and because they haven't charged anybody's credit card, that those people, it's like nothing ever happened. It's just like, oh well, they just didn't make it. Okay, Indiegogo's a little different.
Indiegogo's a little different. So what they'll do is, if you don't, well, there's two ways to do it. You can do flexible, right? So if you have a flex plan, the thing with the flex plan is whatever you raise, you keep.
Okay.
So if you put up to raise $1,000, you only make $700, they'll send you the $700. Okay.
There's a flex campaign, in other words. Right?
Exactly.
Okay.
It's flexible.
Yeah.
So, but also you could do, I forgot what it's called on Indiegogo, but you could do it where it's hard.
Yeah.
And if you don't reach that goal, you don't get anything.
I think it's called fixed. I think it's called
fixed.
It's like a fixed campaign. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you have a fixed goal. So I mean, it just depends how you want to roll with it. Because like I said, with my stuff, it's already made. I'm printing digital anyway. So I know whether I raise $500 or $5,000, I know exactly what I'm doing.
So now, in the case that you've picked a flex campaign in Indiegogo, right? You've got a flex campaign, but some people didn't pay. Again, you get to see the list of people who've paid and people who have not paid.
Well, in Indiegogo, they just charge them.
They just charge them.
Right. So if they don't pay, you'll never see it.
Oh shoot. Okay.
Yeah. So in Indiegogo, their credit card gets charged automatically. It's Kickstarter, where at the end, when they go to charge them and they don't get charged, you'll see it. This wasn't paid, so you don't fulfill it.
So as somebody who has pledged for something in Indiegogo that's a flex campaign, there's a chance you may not get your stuff. Do you think? Because not all of the money is there. So you're trying to get as much stuff as you possibly can get printed at that moment and send it out. Right.
It depends on the creator. If they're stupid, they're not gonna fulfill their campaign. Yeah. I'm serious. If you're stupid, you're not gonna do it. You're gonna say it's stupid or grimy, right? If you're just a terrible human being and you're like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna take your money, and just go to Disney World and screw you, you're not gonna get any books.
Right. Yeah.
Right. I mean, the first and foremost, what you want to do is you made a promise to somebody. They gave you something, and you're going to deliver them a product. So that's the thing that you want to keep to that every time.
I think we did a show on crowdfunding. We compared the two platforms, and most people do use Kickstarter, and I think part of it is because they have more of a if I pledge for something, I'm going to get it, versus Indiegogo, because of their flex campaigns. Sometimes that flex thing, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, whether the person is just a bad person or they just didn't calculate correctly, and now they're behind on what they have to send out, and now they have to put out a pocket for it. Sometimes it gets a little messy. I think that most people think, Kickstarter is a little more, I don't know.
Stable.
Stable. Yeah, I guess stable is the word. So how soon? I guess it all depends on you. You can make this determination as the creator of the campaign. But how soon after the campaign ends do we have to send out the rewards?
Everybody sets it up differently, because the thing is like, for myself, and this is what I advise for everyone: have the work complete, have it finished. Okay, because you have a lot of these guys, especially a lot of artists. You guys, and also you got a lot of pros and semi-pros. They come out of Marvel, they come out of DC. When those guys come out of Marvel and DC, they don't know what it's like to be a publisher. Okay, all they know is that they get an assignment and they hand in their pages and they get a check. Okay, they don't realize, like, okay, I raised $50,000. Now I have to actually do the work. And then after doing the work, you got more work to do. You got to contact the printer. You got to, if you got to get it colored, you're not doing it yourself. You got to contact colors. You got to do all this extra stuff. Okay, so sometimes they're not ready for that, so they don't know how to calculate for that time. Right. Okay, so because all that stuff is time. You say, oh man, I just finished pencil inking this whole book. Damn, I gotta get it colored. How long is that gonna take? Right? Yeah. You understand?
So you gotta get it lettered, and how long?
Exactly. How long is that gonna take? Yeah. And if you're not accustomed to setting up that kind of process, it could take a while, because if you don't know what you're doing. That's why I always suggest have it ready to go. Gotcha. If it's done, you can say, look, the files are done.
Right.
all I got to do is raise this money, and then it'll go out.
Right.
You know, for me, I try to flip. I try to flip them as quickly as I can, because, like I said, I have a lot of product. I have a lot of back stock as far as books.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get them all out. So it's just like the quicker I can push them out, you know, the more I'll do.
So I guess essentially what you're doing is you're coming out of pocket to get the stuff going, and
Right.
then with the hope, you know, that a lot of that gets reimbursed to you in the form of these campaigns, so
Right.
that way nobody's waiting. The stuff is ready to go. You're gonna get your product. I'm gonna get my money. Everybody's happy. Versus a person who may say, "Well, I don't really have any money for this, so I'm just gonna wait on this campaign to get me all of this done." And now the artist is gonna take a year to draw this book, and these people have pledged money that they're thinking, "Hey, man, where's my book?" You know.
Right.
Now at that point, I guess you now at this point you have to update your backers on when this stuff is going to be done, right? And then if you have another campaign, you're probably not going to get those backers back if they see that it takes this long, right?
Well, here's the thing: if you do a campaign, you should fulfill the campaign before even thinking starting another one.
Yeah.
Okay. As a matter of fact, I don't even think Indiegogo. Well, I think Indiegogo will allow you to do a second one, but I don't think Kickstarter will. Like, if you have it fulfilled, I don't think they'll allow you to do a second campaign on Kickstarter. Wow. Indiegogo, I think, is a little bit more flexible. I think they might. But again, I suggest if you fulfill and then do the next one.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
You could drop off that last damn package this morning to the post office and then come right home and then launch the other one.
Yeah.
You understand that? And that's fine.
Yeah.
But don't just like say, oh, well, I launched this one and then, oh, let me launch this one. You're just asking for trouble.
Yeah.
You know, there have been guys who have done it, and I've heard a lot of bad stories.
You've done a few campaigns then. So what were some of the takeaways from your first campaign that you did? What were some of the things that you were like, okay, should have done that. Let me try this for the next one. What were some of the things, the takeaways?
Well, okay. The big one was, okay. So the first one, I was raising $5,000, right? And I just, like I said, for 30 days, it was just a grind. And I was just, just out there, just grinding it, not really prepared, because I didn't know to have a mailing list. I didn't know to try to contact people to go on podcasts. I didn't know these other venues like YouTube to go on and try to, to do these things, right? I had a little bit of a following through my website, but yeah, it was just a grind. That was probably the biggest takeaway I got, was that I wasn't prepared, even though I made the goal.
Yeah.
It took a serious toll on me. So much so that I fulfilled the campaign, no problem, but I didn't release another campaign for another 2 years. Okay, so that was the issue. And then what I did was I said, okay, I'll raise $3,500, and it was again another damn grind, and it was just like, oh, damn it. Yeah. So then what I did after that was I was like, screw it. I think about a year and a half afterwards, I said, I'm gonna take a whole different tack, because for those two campaigns, I did 2 hardcover books. I did 2 trades, 2 hardcovers, and for the next ones, I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna do a comic book. I'm just gonna do a regular comic book, saddle stitched, and that's it. And the reason I did that was because at the time I was doing them myself. Okay, I come from a background in printing. Okay. Yeah, so I have a lot of the equipment. I have the bindery equipment. I still have it, that it's upstairs. So, I had access to professional guillotine cutters. I had the whole 9 yards. So I would order this stuff from a printer. They would send the stuff to me. I would put it together, score the covers, do the whole thing. So if you guys like some of my original books, I physically touched every book.
The little ones, you had little ones too, like small size. Yeah.
When I first started, right, that was part of it. But then I started doing them comic book size.
Right.
Okay. So even though, like I said, every one of them, my grubby mitts got on all of them. So, and that was just a way for me to do it. And what the hell was the question again? I went off. I was just like, this is what I wanted to
What were some of the takeaways? You said that at the
right. The takeaway, right. Okay, yes, the takeaways. Okay, so yes. So I started doing these comics because, one, I could do them, and I could do them relatively inexpensively because I was doing a lot of the work myself. Okay? Eventually, I found another printer who was a little bit more expensive, but he did all the work. So I was like, I don't have to do this.
Right.
I'll just pay a little bit extra, and he'll take care of all of it. And there are now like several digital printers that'll do that. They could do the service, reasonably priced. And that's the thing, search, because not all printers the guy I use Page by Page, his black and white prices are really good. His color rates are really good. And then there's another company you use called Mix'em. Their black and white rates are pretty much in line with his, but their color rates are they're way more expensive than his.
Yeah.
So I would suggest using him for color.
Right.
Them for black and white, definitely, or him. It just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But then, like Mix'em, they also do trade paperbacks, and they have good pricing. But then I found this other company where if you look at their comic books, the prices are not that good, but their trade paperback prices are actually very good.
Interesting.
So, yeah, that's the thing. You got to sit down. You got to actually study the numbers.
Yeah. Because that's going to determine, like you said, that's going to determine how much you're going to charge for, well, not charge, what the incentives are going to be and how much you're going to raise at the end of this thing and all that other stuff. No, I got you. So,
yeah. Oh, wait, so hold on. Let me finish with this takeaway thing, because I keep forgetting about it and I keep coming back to it. Okay. So the big takeaway that I got is so I went from 5,000 to 3,500, and then my next campaign, when I was just doing comic books, it was $500.
Wow.
And we blow through those quite quickly. Okay, thankfully. We have enough of a fan base that we put it up, and we're usually at $1,000 within the first 2 days. Nice. Okay? So then we're just trying to build on that at that point. So we're just basically trying to get it to 1,500, 2,000, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. And I've been criticized for keeping my goals low. You understand? But I can sleep at night.
Right.
Okay, I'm not sweating over this.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I was going to ask you that. I was going to ask you, is there a science? And there's not a science to any of this stuff. But no. I guess, is there something to be said about having a low goal of $500 and exceeding that goal and getting to 2,000? And I think it's psychological. I really do think it's like a psychological thing. Like when people see that number, oh, these guys are trying to raise $2,000. Let's see what happens, right? And they wait. Whereas if they see somebody trying to raise 500, let's give this guy some money. Boom. And I don't know. I just feel like there is some kind of psychology to seeing that. And even for the person behind that screen who posted this campaign, like you said, you sleep better at night, because especially with Kickstarter. If you don't reach your goal, you don't get your money. If you're looking for $4,000 and you have $3,999.99,
you better call grandma quick.
You're not getting that money, right? So
that's right.
Why not just put up 500 and see what happens? I don't know how much you can do with 500, but if you have the books in your house already ready to print out, why not? Just to get a little fan base going.
Because also the thing is like I did a campaign where I just wanted to raise. I just my goal was $1. Okay, that was my goal. It was $1. Yeah, legit. Wow. I put the Kickstarter. You can put down $1.
No way.
Okay, yeah. Indiegogo, you have to put at least 500.
Wow.
But Kickstarter, you can put $1. My goal is $1. See the psychological message you're telling to your fans is that no matter what happens, that book is coming out.
Right.
That's true. Understand? That book is coming out. You're gonna get that damn book. You give me, if the pledge is $20 to get the book, you're gonna get that book.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay? That's a good point.
So that's the big difference that I see. You understand? That's like once that goal is achieved, and if it's achieved quickly, you're gonna get the book. There shouldn't be any thoughts as to whether or not you're gonna get it. Yeah. You're gonna get it.
Yeah. And I guess that might be a good way to start. Start with something you already have, rather than trying to from scratch. Trying to get, I'm trying to pay this artist. He's charging me whatever amount, $100 a page, and I have a 22-page book. You guys are going to help me kind of put this together, and the artist hasn't even started yet.
Right. Well, here's the thing. I see. Well, all right. Here's another thing. That's as far as creating a book, if you don't have the money to make the book, don't do it. Okay? Because the thing is like, it's like anything else. All right. I go to a comic book convention, right? And I have a $5 book on the table. I have a $1 book on the table. I have a $50 book on the table. I have a fan come over to my table, said, "Man, I spent all my money at the door trying to just get in here." And I'm like, "Why are you here?" Conventions are just big shopping malls, right?
Yeah.
That's all they are. You got bigger problems than being at this show. You should not be here.
Right.
You're not doing anybody any favors by being here.
Yeah.
You understand?
If you go everything coming in the door,
right? If your intention
coming through the door,
if your intention is just to go to the panels, cosplay, talk to some professional, I don't know, whatever it is you were planning on doing, other than buying stuff. But if your intention is to buy stuff, you gotta have money.
Yeah.
So if you want to produce a book, I always suggest have that first issue finished. Sometimes you got to make those sacrifices if you really want to do it. If not, write prose. Then it's just all on you.
Yeah.
But if you want to do a comic book, you got to make that sacrifice. I mean, I started off with the Oswald Chronicles doing it as a comic book because I came across a windfall of $5,000. I just had 5 G's, like it just landed on my lap. Literally, almost literally. It was just like, bam, there it is. I was like, oh, shit. What am I gonna do with this? Most smart people save it.
Sure.
Right?
Invested.
Invested. Exactly. This is what intelligent people invest it, save it. Maybe even go on a nice vacation. Buy a new car. Put a down payment on a nice car.
Sure.
No, not me. No.
Absolutely.
Special.
No. You're insane.
Exactly.
You're insane, though. We
established this. Yes. So I started reaching out to artists. I got a price. I said, okay, let's go for it. And I've been at it ever since.
Yeah.
But what you want to do is you have that initial seed money, whatever it is. It could be $1,000, $500, whatever it is. But you take that initial seed money, and what you want to do is just try to replenish that seed money. Yeah. You understand? With that Kickstarter, if you make more, you make more. That's great. You understand? That's just gravy. But you want to try to replenish so you can keep going.
Absolutely. There you go, man. That's it. It's all about the strategies, I guess, of this thing. And I guess there is, at the end of this, there is no right or wrong way. It's like almost like try it and see what happens. But this, I think this is a good conversation as far as just the do's and don'ts from somebody who's done. How many campaigns have you done now?
17 on Kickstarter and 3 on Indiegogo, and I'm gonna launch probably another Indiegogo in a week or 2.
That's amazing, dude.
And we have a Kickstarter running right now.
Oh man! So by the time this airs, you'll probably have another campaign out there.
I will definitely have another Indiegogo, at least an Indiegogo, and hopefully another Kickstarter.
There you go.
Yeah, and I will be running them concurrently. Like I'll be running a Kickstarter and Indiegogo at the same time. Yeah.
Oh, JD.
I got stuff to do, man.
Thank you so much, man, for being on the show again, and doing this little series of videos for me.
Thank you for having me.
And hopefully, I'll see you in person. And if not, through the camera, this is good too. This works.
Exactly. This works.
All right, my brother.
All right, bro. Thank you so much.
Have a good one. No problem, brother.
That was a great segment. Get your meds.
It was. Yes, it was.
Yes, it was. And now, time for our guest. And yes, let's welcome him in. Hello there.
Hey, how you doing?
Oh, good. Your audio works. Perfect. All right.
James is a pro, man. What's going on, James? How you doing?
Jamie.
I'm sorry.
Good. How about you?
Good.
Excellent.
So we were talking about you in the pre-show, and we were talking about. It was funny because George and I were comparing notes, and I was like, "How many questions do you have?" He's like, "I got 19." I was like, "Well," and it's funny because we had most of our questions were similar, so we'll go back and forth because we think you did a great job with your book, and I think you could tell that there was a lot of thought put into it, and. It looked, based on reading it, even though it was a good, quick read, it seemed like it was an easy read, which was great. So, but it was one that you didn't want to put down and you wanted to keep on reading through. And you can apply a lot of those advice and methods and business practices to anything based on what we took away from this and how I made profit selling comics. But before we go into your book, we want to introduce you, and we're going to let our viewers know who you are. So please.
Cool. Well, my name's Jamie Medlin. I wrote, a little book called How I Made Profit Selling Comic Books from Home. And I just, I could jump into my story really. And that's just, basically was gifted a book during my one of my I guess my main job. I own a company and we do a lot of home services, a lot of inspection work, and so I basically was on a project and I was working with this homeowner who had just an awesome house. I mean, it was a Comic-Con in his home. It was, I'm telling you, anybody that enjoys any type of hero type of, just that whole genre it was amazing. It was like, whoa, this is crazy. This guy had it all.
Right.
And he had just purchased like a 30,000 barn find comic, just a crazy amount of comics. Probably just somebody that either closed their comic book shop or who knows, but it was a lot of comics, and he had 4 or 5 copies of Spider-Man 1. It was the silver edition, it's a really cool book, and it was signed by Stan Lee.
Right.
And, I'd always been a collector, but we were just talking. He goes, "Hey," before I was leaving his house, he goes, "I want you to have this." And, I'm going to bring up one of my friends who was actually there with me working, and he goes, "I want you to have this book." I'm like, "There's no way. This is too much. This is signed by Stan Lee." No, like I just couldn't even. And
wow.
And my buddy, he goes, "And you're cool too." Like doesn't even mention anything. Yeah, I'm like, whoa, that's messed up. But this is my book.
And, that's incredible.
And then it kind of just, the bug bit me, and I was like, enamored by this comic, and it was like, whoa, this is cool. It was a Spider-Man book. It was always my favorite character, and so that was kind of like what got me into comics more was that book and that whole experience. So, yeah.
So what was the next step for you after that? So you had an epiphany. It's like, whoa, I can do something with this. And so what was the next step?
So the story kind of just evolved into, okay, I read that comic because, I got it as a raw comic, and I was just like, whatever. Didn't realize what the whole comic book world was all about yet. And then I was like, Carnage was always one of my favorite characters. And so I ended up going on eBay and I bought like every Carnage, like the first appearance of Carnage, all the whole series. There was a run, and I started reading them. And then, I just started seeing like on eBay and all these places where you could buy it. I'm like, dude, some of these are going for like 10 grand. Like these books are, wow. There's actually like this whole underworld. And so, I just started, I'm an entrepreneur by heart. So I was like, there's something here.
Yeah.
And then I just was like, okay, well, I want all the Spider-Man keys. You know, I started looking, and so you know, I didn't just dabble. I kind of one of my first keys, and I brought some show and tell here.
Nice.
One of my first books that I ended up buying was the, you know, Not Too Bad.
Not too bad at all, brother. Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna start buying all these keys, and
Right.
I don't know, it just was awesome to have it, and you know, started following the GPA trends just because I didn't want to buy too high, and I really just dove in. I talk about it a little bit in the book, but I've learned my lessons buying raw comics, and you know, the book itself is kind of geared towards newer collectors, or kind of like it's really hard for me to gauge the type of collector because you have so many different experience levels, and I've met and talked with so many different people, but it is on the newer you know, comic collector side where they're getting into selling, or even just learning from this book. You can learn better ways to buy, in my opinion. And so the more experienced collectors and, you know, sellers, they'll learn a few tips and tricks, but you know, again, going back, I bought a raw Avengers 1, and I was like, oh dude, it was such a good deal. And you know, it was like this guy was, you could tell he was just like really trying to get the deal done.
Right.
And
Where did you buy it? Where did you buy it?
It was in
Online?
Sacramento. No,
Okay.
sorry, it was in person actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he had an Avengers #1 and something else that was another, you know, heavy hitter, and I was basically like looking at the book, and there was just some spots that looked a little weird, looked a little bright, and I'm like, okay, well, whatever, this is just how the book looks. And I didn't invest enough time learning about how to grade a book. And I think that's something huge for new collectors. They should really understand, you know, how to grade, because I would have recognized if I flipped the front cover over, there was, you know, some, you could see some bleed through from the actual touch up that was on the cover.
Wow.
Yeah.
Damn.
And I had just given this guy a couple grand for that book.
Oh,
and
jeez.
I was on my way back, and I was like, man, there's something weird about the light on this book. And it was that gut feeling of, all right, I need to text this guy, and luckily gave him my money back. So,
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah.
You know, Jamie, you mentioned a couple of words that are in the book, and I wouldn't have understood them unless I read the book. You said you used the word raw and the word key. Tell us what a raw comic is.
So just ungraded. It's not slabbed. And it's one of those things where if you're a new to this world of buying and selling comics, or you're just a collector, you know, everybody in the game, we should say, kind of understands that when you buy it from like just a slab comic that's encased, it's encapsulated, whether it's CGC, you know, I really tend to go CG, you know, I didn't want to be too biased in my book, but I really appreciate their, you know, it's kind of like the gold standard, I feel like, in comics.
Right.
I was going to ask you about that. What grading system, what grading company do you use? So that's the grading company that you like. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a little, you know, just because like, I feel like when you look at some of the grades that the other ones will give, it's a little lenient sometimes, or it's really inconsistent.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I feel like CGC is just a little bit nicer for me personally, but it's just my opinion.
Right.
Yeah. So that's that right there is the difference between the raw and personally, I don't know, but I've heard that CGC will slip specific, you know, papers that will help preserve the comic, and I like that as well. So
Well, you mentioned that.
What are Sammy, hold on one second. What are keys?
Okay, keys.
Yeah.
So one of my, I guess what it is it comes down to key comic book, like within a series. So for example, I'm big on Amazing Spider-Man, as I said. So, you know, any first appearance, specific artwork from artists, there's, and you know, and a good example is like Silver Surfer 4. It's not really like a crazy key book in a way. It's just the artwork is amazing. It's an iconic cover, and that could create a key. So it's like the ones that, you know, they're important first appearances mainly. Right. So yeah, I like to stick to those.
Right. So you mentioned something about the slab, and you said acidic slabs will shorten the life cycle of a comic book. So how do you determine what's an acidic slab, and which brands do you recommend?
Well, I guess what that really is more or less talking about is usually like the cardboard that you would put when
Right.
you're just, when you have like a raw comic and you're just trying to keep it in its sleeve, and you want to use material that isn't acidic. So you could just buy for your bags and boards material that will specifically state on there that it's non-acidic. And you know, I personally don't have experienced, I haven't experienced damage to raw comics, but it's something where you kind of learn from the industry, from everybody, you know, just kind of giving advice. Like a lot of paper conservationists are the ones that will recommend a lot of this. So that's just kind of me following advice that I've received. So
Right. So you start collecting. At what point do you start realizing, hey, I want to sell this stuff?
Well, I guess it's that thing where you always want to upgrade your comics. And, you know, so I'd buy these cool keys, and then I'd see, okay, like say, I bought an Amazing Spider-Man #1 that was a 2.5, and everyone kind of sees that the market has these kind of peaks and valleys. And if you're really watching the GPA, I do look on eBay, I look on Facebook groups, Instagram, you'll kind of see trends. And so if I could see when I'm scrolling through for books I'm looking for, I noticed, I'm like, man, I paid, you know, this much money for a 2.5 when now 3s or 3.5s are going for almost the same price. Like, this is ridiculous.
Right.
And so when it was another thing where I started noticing, okay, there's a little bit of a market here. There's books can cool off, books can heat up. And so it really made me kind of focus in on watching how the market kind of performs on certain books. And again, Silver Age is my real go-to. I talk about all the books because I do own pretty much every, you know, age or vintage of book, but I'm really partial to Silver Age. There's just so many cool storylines and key comics that I personally enjoy, and that also anybody that collects Silver Age knows that it's really easy to sell. It's just, there's a lot of buyers for the Silver Age stuff. So
what, you know, you said you made the decision, I'm going to sell. Which was the first, what was your first attempt? What platform, and what was that experience like, and how successful was it for you?
Well, so one of the first times I actually sold was through a consignment. And, you know, you guys probably know him. It's Elite Comics 11, Ali. So, yes. Yeah, you know, he kind of helped me on a lot of deals. You know, I probably have cycled maybe $100,000 worth of comics through him.
Wow.
So yeah, he was instrumental in a lot of my deals. And again, it helped because some of the comics that I'd buy and sell were these heavy hitters, like, you know, Amazing Fantasy 15, you know, the big guys. So I wanted to make sure that I had somebody that had the right buyers. So, and that was just my beginning kind of experience. And then it kind of pushed into Facebook. I'm part of a lot of groups on Facebook, and I sold some books through there, bought some books through there. And then I've also done it through Instagram as well. So yeah, that's been my experience.
So Jamie, you are partial to the Silver Age of comics, you said, right? And I think it's because, like you were talking about, there's a lot of keys in that era, right?
Yeah.
As far as collecting modern age comics, for example, right? Say you go into a comic book shop, you know, today. What do you look? I know you look for keys. Are there any books today that you could say that you can probably predict? Wow, this book is probably going to be worth some money, so you buy it. And have you been right in that sense? Like, say within the last, I don't know, year or two or something like that.
You know, it's really tough. I would say no, I mean, I hate to say it, but I just don't, you know, I don't buy too many modern comic. I would say the most modern comic would be like Ultimate Fallout. I would say that's about as modern as I get.
Yeah.
So, and you know, and even to touch on that, I don't know if you've noticed, but that book has blown up. You know, and I want to say like 3 copies for maybe $20 each, and they're all on like, you know, 9s. Yeah. So, you know, it was just for me, again, Spider-Man fan. So I'm like, hey, I want to buy all the keys.
Yeah.
And, you know, it panned out. So, yeah.
So you go into this endeavor. How did you determine what because the focus of your book is making a profit. So how do you determine what your budget is for purchasing and what your projected goal is to be able to make a profit for that? So how did you identify, here's my starting point and this is what I need to earn?
So, you know, I guess the thing with comics, and especially with being partial to Silver Age, you know, I really just kind of study what's out on the market. And it's tough because, you know, I don't buy and sell to just, you know, to make it a living for me. It is ancillary income. And so I take a little bit more time on and being more picky on my purchases. And so, for example, I kind of talk about like the condition of the book, you know, rule that I have. And that has helped me, but it also takes a lot more time when I'm picking a book because I'm very picky. Like, for example, I'm currently working on a 3.5 Fantastic Four #1. It's a big book. And I had an opportunity to buy a 1.5, you know, and I look at the cover. I don't like writing on the cover. I don't like any tape. It can't be detached. You know, those little marks to me just makes the universal a little tainted. Not that it's bad to buy them. It's just, you know, what I've noticed is if there's stamps, any writing, they just sit on the market longer. Like you can look on eBay and generally you'll find a lot of those comics are either overpriced or they have like blemishes that I'm not interested in buying.
Right.
And so because that's the market that I buy and sell in, it's just not as fast paced. Like I'm not buying a book and selling it tomorrow. You know, I take my time, find the right book, make sure I look at GPA. And then at that point I'm messaging, trying to work out a deal to get the best price I can, or even, you know, at times I've traded plus cash or, you know, just try to wheel and deal a little bit. And then, and then see if I can make the purchase.
So real quick, Jamie, you mentioned, and in your book, and this, when we were talking to Sam before you came on, it's very informative, dude. Like, I don't know anything about grading comics, and I found, like, wow, I really got an education from this book. There's a whole list of, like, you go from like 10 to like 0.5 of ratings. Can you tell us what the 3.5 means? What is a 3.5 rating? So when you go into and you see that slab with 3.5 at the top that you have there, actually, what is that exactly?
So the 3.0 would be just the grade that, you know, and again, because I buy mostly graded, it's easy to kind of spot, but it is the grade that the comic book grading company is given, and it's a good / very good is what its, you know, technical rating is, or label grade. And you know, and it's interesting because sometimes like right as we talk now, there's a book, it's, I think it's 3.0 or 3.5 Fantastic Four #1 on eBay, and you would think it's like a 7. Like, it's super clean. Now they're asking like a 7 price. Like, it's definitely something's up with that book. Because they're asking like 17 grand for it, or 16 grand, and it's just a little, it's overpriced, but it looks super clean. So sometimes, and why I bring this up is you could look at a book and it hasn't been pressed, it hasn't been cleaned. So sometimes you could bump a whole grade, and when you're doing Silver Age like I am, one grade bump could be $2,000. Wow. So you could do a $100 press and clean and get it regraded, and you could actually make $1,000, $2,000 or more just by spotting what looks good and taking that little bit of a risk. Because sometimes, yeah, you can send it in and it either does not improve its grade or lowers the grade, and that's terrible. But you just have to have good, clean pictures, and I kind of talk about that. And you know, so if you're searching on the internet, or you're doing a Facebook deal, or you're doing an Instagram deal, I just bought a X-Men 1, and I asked him for like 100 photos. So it was like, you know, this guy's literally blowing up my inbox with all these photos, because I'm like, I want to know if there's an opportunity for me to press it into something better, or, you know, just really know what I'm buying, because it's a big, you know, expensive book. So.
Right. So you mentioned in your book how important it is to do present events, to be at cons, conventions. Two questions behind that. Number one, what was your first appearance? And number two, how did you adjust based on what's happening now with everything shut down?
So I did a Comic-Con event in Sacramento, and, you know, it's really fun, you know, to me, just as a collector, you know, and as somebody that buys and sells, it's a cool place to go. And, you know, you could get some pretty good deals. Like, especially if you're buying multiple from somebody, there's a little bit of pressure, because in person they have a booth they just paid, and the Sacramento event was pretty busy. So you're set up with all these other people selling comics, and they're, you know, they gotta make it worth it being there to sell their books. And right. So you get a little bit more room, and you could buy books under GPA at those events, or, you know, because I go in kind of with a game plan with what books I'm really interested in buying, if I could see them there. And really, you have your phone, so you can just kind of check if you don't see your grade that you've already kind of taken notes on. But, you know, as of this interview, we're kind of dealing with COVID, so it sucks. I don't know what the future even holds for these events, but I'm sure it's going to hurt some of these comic shops. And if you guys see, you know, not throwing Ali out there again, but he's helped out some of these shops by doing these live events, just really helping these comic shops. So I think that's actually a potential future for anybody getting into comics, is being even more creative with live events on Instagram or Facebook, or just going on maybe on Twitch. I don't know, but doing some cool streaming event, I think might end up being a cool niche to get into.
Yeah. No, we were reading this book, that, you said something about the Bronze Age of comics, obviously went from newsstands, and then once the new age came in, we went into niche stores, the comic book stores. And when you mentioned COVID right now, do you feel like maybe comics will end up going back to newsstands, even if like something like this doesn't happen? Do you feel like that's something that it could gear towards there?
I think that there's something really to be said about just a real paper book to hold in your hand, and especially the art that comes behind it. And I do feel like that's going to continue to stay alive. I think some of these comic book artists they're all influencing from other comic book artists, and they want to grow up or they want to continue that tradition. And I feel like now through this time, I feel like publishers might be having a hard time through COVID. So we don't really know what the future holds. I think that this whole pandemic is a little crazy, and I hope that what happens through this, it'll come back, and but yeah, I think that there's a collectability about having an actual raw book, and I don't think that's ever going to go away. I just don't. I think that if the big publishers put it to bed, then I feel like there's going to be some type of I don't know, just smaller publishers, or I think they'll keep it alive, basically.
Right. So basically, how have you adjusted to this without having any? How aggressive are you using social media? You mentioned a lot about the communities. How important are the communities to your business?
Very important. I honestly feel like for me, it really hasn't changed much, just because I've been purchasing the last few years through social media, through eBay, through heritage auctions, all these reputable comic book websites. So the only thing that I really feel like Instagram is what's blowing up right now. A lot of people. I mean, I started my new Instagram account for this book, and I'm selling a couple copies on there. And man, in just a short amount of time, I'm almost at 1,000 followers. Like there's a lot of people in comic books, and it's staggering. Yeah. So it's cool. It's really, and that's a big part of why I wrote this, because when I got started, like I said, I bought a raw comic, I thought I knew what I was doing, and I leaned on some of the community to learn, and they would kind of go, oh, well, make sure you get a membership with with the GPA analysis, or get on the CGC forums. These are those little tips that, excuse me, over time, you just kind of, you have to learn it yourself.
Right. And
I didn't find any cool guides, like, that really pointed me in the direction that I was going. And that's kind of why I developed this.
You had one tip actually in your book, a really good tip, where it said movies really help with sales, right? So I wanted you just to tell us, is there a time where you had a book that a movie really helped you sell it? And what book was it, and what movie was it that did that for you?
So, well, for one, it was Captain Marvel. That was a big one. Avengers, so these are some books that I had purchased because, I thought, for one, I can't remember, don't, I'm not like the movie buff on it, but one of the movies kind of led into, okay, the Avengers was forming, or we kind of knew that it was going towards the Avengers.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, for one, I love it. It's so cool to me. My kids like it. So I'm like, all right, I want to buy this just because I like the look. And then I realized that the Avengers was blowing up, and then, Captain Marvel. So, that book blew up. And so movies definitely influence the books, but the problem with it is there's websites you can join, or groups that talk about speculation buying. So for example, there's a few books, let's see, one recently that I've seen was, I'm losing my I can't remember the name of it. Anyways, yeah, there's websites for speculation buying.
Right.
And if you take a look, some of these recommendations are buying it ahead of time. I want to say, like Luke Cage. Before Luke Cage came out, I bought a few of the first appearance of his book. I think that some of these speculation sites will help guide you a little bit. And I don't have a recommendation as far as the exact website, but there are some Facebook groups and things that will help you out. But going back to the original question, I think Miss Marvel, that book was one that I sold and made really good profit from, just because that there was a lot of marketing, and I had purchased that book right when I heard that she was going to be in her own movie. And I think that was probably one of my best profit gains, was just buying it at a pretty low price, and then it blew up, and I had 2 copies of it. So I still have the other one, so I keep it in my personal collection, and I made more than I paid for that book, and I had some extra spending cash for another book.
Nice. I wonder how much a Blade book will be going for right now.
Yeah, I have seen all those coming, and honestly, it's just I have not spent too much time buying that. I just feel like there's still so much in my little niche that I enjoy buying and selling in, that
Yeah.
So what spawned the idea to write this book and share your trade secrets?
So, during the COVID, I spent some time with my family, and there's a couple things. One is the guy actually going back to my original, he's going to laugh if this is in this podcast. he mentioned it to me. He's like, you didn't talk about me in any of the podcasts. But basically, the guy that was with me for that first book that I ever got, signed Stan Lee, he actually got into comics. So now this is years later. And so he's, so I've already amassed this big collection. I've learned all this stuff. And he basically is like telling me all these books that he's been buying lately. And it's similar to how I kind of began too. I bought, all the Carnage series, and books that didn't really, some of them were good, they're keys, but the other ones were just kind of not really the ones you buy. And so him getting into comics, and then another buddy of mine was like, hey, what book should I buy? And I'm like, you know what? I've got some time. I might as well just write down some of the stuff that I do and see if it can help. And I feel like it just kind of was very simple for me to just go to a notepad, and I just literally started writing hard, and all into an iPhone notes. That's where it started.
There you go.
So most people, when they write, they I think the hard part is their start. And you decided to start with a brief overview of the vintage table and give just like a historical perspective of what they mean. Why did you choose that route?
Well, because I think going back, it's really important to know how to look at a book, and I just feel like it's just important. It's just part of the learning the anatomy of a book and how it's graded is how the market works. If you buy a comic book and it's a 3, you don't want to pay the same price for a 1. You want to know what it is you're buying. And I think if you know how to grade, you understand the concept, you'll have a better time navigating when you're looking to buy. So, that was just kind of, to me, it's the essentials. It's the foundation.
I kind of like the fact that you did it that way, only because it kind of set me to say, okay, in this book, you're going to learn about this. Yeah. And this is how I'm going to go about telling you about it. So I was kind of prepared to, okay, this is what I'm going to be learning. Okay, what's next? And that kind of helped me get through, not that it was hard to get through the book, but I'm saying it just kind of helped me kind of navigate through a subject that I had really no idea what I was going to be reading about. So thank you. I mean, I think it was really well done book.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's I mean, of course, if you've seen the book, there's a lot of pleasing like art designs to it. And so I have thankfully good access to designers. And so when I was originally writing out this book, it wasn't, a lot of it were definitely ideas put together. And then I started going, okay, how do I, really just build this framework the right way? And and it sucks because I'm a little bit of a perfectionist in the sense that I keep wanting to tweak little things and add more. I mean, there's so much more that you can add. It's also got to be something that somebody can digest.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
Yeah.
So what's fascinating about this is that George and I could sit here and pick your brain for hours. Right.
Yes.
We are running out of time, but we definitely want to do a follow-up show to see how this book is done sometime at the end of the year. But what would you like people to take away from this? What would you like them to know about you? How can they find you?
Yeah. I definitely love to do a follow-up. The big thing to take from this book is that there's opportunity, not just, trying to be a collector, but there's a whole new world. There's a comic selling world. It's pretty crazy. There's a ton of buyers and there's a ton of sellers. And I think that if you have a good foundation by at least reading this book, then my goal is to bring more people into this industry, into this, being a collector, being a buyer, being a seller, because the more people we bring in, I feel like there's more opportunity for everybody. And, it's something pretty cool. And, if you want to learn more, or if your fans or your viewers, my website is profitfromcomics.com. And right now I have it listed for $12.99. And with how much time invested, I mean, really it's like 2 cups of coffee and you have something that will last forever. And it's an essential book for the collector. So
100%.
Perfect.
100%. Thank you so much, Jamie. Really appreciate you coming on, man.
Yes, it's funny because I'm sitting on at least 40 comic book boxes worth of comics that's been sitting in my basement for 20 years, and you're making me want to go back in and dig into crates.
Yeah,
it's like, what am I sitting on? Yes, I'm like, what am I sitting on? And
well, make sure you give me first crack at buying them.
Absolutely, absolutely. But it was a pleasure. I really loved your book. You need to go and get that book. It's It's a great read, and those lessons you can apply to any business practice. You did a great job with it. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Much success to you, and we will be doing a follow-up show later on at the end of the year. And thanks again for watching and for being on the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, and yeah, I love your show. So thank you.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, buddy.
Take care, Jamie.
Thank you.
All right, you too. Bye.
All right, that was a really good episode, and I just gotta hide this. This is what happens. Really good episode. I mean, there's just so many questions we can ask.
Dude, tons. I mean, it's such an interesting world. The world of buying and selling comics.
And, you know, he hit it on the nail. Remember, we were talking about how this is such a growing trend with the auctions and the buying and the selling and the deliveries, and everyone's like, I just got this box and this is what I got, and everyone's getting them graded. And I'm not surprised that in the short time that he has over 1,000 subscribers, because comics there's such a huge following behind it.
Yeah. I mean, I love his. I mean, and I can see why now. You know, we're talking about why Silver Age. I mean, there are just so many stories in that era. You know, so many first appearances of. In the book, he talks about the first appearance of the Punisher being more more important than the appearance of another character who they thought was going to do better. And at first, the Punisher didn't, and all of a sudden, he just took off.
Yeah.
So it's like you never know what you're buying. You know, like the first appearance of a character here, and then all of a sudden, that character becomes somebody so big, like the Punisher.
Yeah, it's like the 9.8 grade Amazing Spider-Man first appearance of not the Lizard. Man, I forgot which issue I have. Anyway, that I was gifted. It's in my office at work. That was $1,500.
Yeah.
$1,500. That
I wonder how much it's worth now. You know what I mean? Like, I wonder how much you could probably get for it if you wanted to sell it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Wait a few years, and all of a sudden, you know. Yeah. Like,
but you know what's funny, George? You know, you and I think alike, because when he was talking, if you look at right here, where is it? I don't know if you can see it with the lights. You see that word right there?
What's that?
Right here.
It's blurry.
It says Blade comic.
Oh, Blade.
Yes, and you said I wrote it down, and I wrote it down. I was like, I wonder what that. And then you brought it up. I was like,
That's so funny, dude. Holy cow! It's like we're in sync.
Yes. I was started writing down. It's like because Usagi Yojimbo, you know the creator, he has the new Netflix series that's coming out. So I was thinking about. I was like, I said, I didn't. It's funny you don't think about it, and I have thousands of comics in my basement.
Yeah, dude, I have comics too. That I'm like, yo, you know what? I got some pretty cool stuff back there. I gotta go check that out. You know, like.
I have the only Moon Knight issues that were ever done by Stephen Platt.
Oh, really?
And
I got some Moonlight.
Signed by him too. So you know, and they're bagged and board. So it's like I gotta go through my stuff and see.
Yeah. I got a signed copy. I got like a sketch cover. Remember Batman Superman when Michael Turner was drawing the covers?
Yes.
And one of the covers was when it was a storyline where Superman's cousin comes in, his female cousin.
Right.
And I have one of those signed from when we went to like Philadelphia or something. I remember when we went to see him talk, and he was drawing up on. He was when we went to see him, and I have that issue signed. I wonder if that's worth anything. You know what I mean? Like there are so many.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna go through and start looking at what I have, because I guarantee you I have every category in the vintage table based on, because true story, and we'll end it on that, I guess. But the true story, one day I was walking my dog. I lived in Hollis, Queens, right? Mm-hmm. In the hood. And I lived right on the Ave, on Jamaica Ave, on 186 in Jamaica. And so I'm walking my dog down the neighborhood where the homes are. I lived in a building, it was only a 2-level building above a printing press. And but when I turn the block, you go into where like the homes are, the suburb. It's not really a suburb, it's still in the hood. But anyway, I just see on the curb someone threw out boxes and boxes of comic books.
Damn.
So I started picking them up, and I'm making trips back and forth to my house, to my apartment, and I just took them, and never even gone through them. I still so what I did was I bought bags and boards, and I just bagged them and bought all of them. I know I have tons of like Star Wars and Star Trek, and I have tons of Spider-Man original, but I just one day I just bought tons of bags and boards and bagged as many of everything, and I put them away. And I didn't even go. I didn't even read them, but I just wanted them. I was like, "How can you throw away comics?" It's like, you crazy. And
so who knows what you got in there?
Yeah,
you gotta check that out.
Yeah, man, it's fascinating.
Yeah, for real.
I'm
good
excited.
Stuff, dude.
I'm excited. Yeah. So this was another great episode of Catch the Craze. What kind of crazy are you? Go to our Patreon and either leave a tip in the tip jar or become a member. Become a crazy. Great episode, great guests. Any last words, Mr. Georgie?
Join us next week for a 1-year anniversary. Our guest will be, do you have his name? I don't have it in front of me. I don't have to say who it was.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a cool guest. So
okay.
Next week.
See you next time. See you next week. I'm Sad the Crazy Man Vera.
George, the Dreamer Medina.
We out.
It's just easy. It's not.
Crazy. Acquiesce.
No, I was talking about my friend Acquiesce. Say my name, right?
This is what you were thinking?
Oh,
he
described me. He said, I'm the
What? Catch the Craze. You're listening to Catch the Craze. You're listening to Catch the Craze. To Catch the Craze. You are listening to Catch the Craze on Catch the Craze. You're listening to Catch the Craze.
Candy girl.